Shalom. This is Adasaba Saiwan returning with the book of Revelation. This is chapter 18 revised, and we are in part 2. And we're looking at the last 3 vials are poured out. All right, so let's get started. Now we are at the conclusion of the vial judgments being poured out, and it gets worse and worse for the wicked. The pain and torments that they will endure will greatly increase because of their evil ways. And yet they are unable to repent because it is not given to these ones the ability to repent of their wickedness as they are condemned. So, right now, we're looking at the judgment of the Gentile nations on the earth. The 12 tribes of Yahawah are safely dwelling in various places. We have the southern kingdom in third heaven, and we have the northern kingdom in our land. And now these are the final judgments, the wrath of Allah Hayam being poured out upon the inhabitants on the earth, which will be the Gentile nations of non-Yashrael descent. Now, there are only 2 kinds of people living in this world. It's always only been about 2 people. I did a study called The 2 Trees to explain this. It's only about 2 kinds of people, whether of Yashrael descent or non-Yashrael descent. And what are those 2 people? You're either righteous before Allah Hayam because you live in obedience to Him, or you're a rebel because you reject Him and you reject His commandments. Either you're sheep or you're a goat. Either you're wheat or you're tare. There are only 2 kinds of people. There are no middle ground in between. There's no middle ground in between. No gray area where you can say, well, I don't believe in anything, so this is where I will stay, in no man's land. There's no such thing. No such thing. Even if you don't believe, even if you reject the evil entities and their commands and demands, by default, you are still considered a worshiper of these devils. I'll explain in a minute. If you reject Allah Hayam, and you also reject the evil entities and their demands, by default, you are still considered a worshiper of the devils, the Satans. Why? Think about this for a second. What caused Lucifer, the anointed cherub, to be cast out of heaven? To lose his light? The worship of self. He turned the worship that was intended for Allah Hayam upon himself. And the Most High cast him down and removed his light garment. So now he's a devil. When we decide, I am not worshiping Allah Hayam, I'm not even worshiping the devils, I'm just going to stay in my little plot of land here called no man's land and wait these battles out. That no man's land is the worship of self, because you will have to be self-righteous to think that you have any kind of power or ability to sustain yourself without the help of Allah Hayam. Yes, you reject the evil entities, but you also reject Him. So you are self-reliant. And that is the worship of self. And by default, you are still worshiping the devil, because that is what caused Satan to fall in the first place, Lucifer to fall in the first place. Was it not? Yeah. So every which way you try to dress it to make it seem like you're not partaking of demonic worship, satanic worship, in actual fact you are. So there are only two kinds of people living on the earth at this point of time. Either you accept the conditions that Allah Hayam will have, let me see the right word, would have relayed to the inhabitants on earth. Because don't forget, the angels are preaching the gospel to the Gentiles. So either people will accept the teaching and the preaching from the angels, or they will not. Either they will believe in Allah Hayam or they will not. And that's why those that refuse and reject Allah Hayam and His word and to repent to Him, they are the ones that are going to be in torment. All right? The righteous, as long as they maintain their stand to worship Allah Hayam, they will see the torments, but they will not have to go through them. They will not have to bear them. Why? Because Allah Hayam will make provision for them, just like He did with the southern kingdom, just like He did with the northern kingdom. He will do it with these few righteous ones of the Gentile nations. They just need to bear up and bear strong. If they lose their faith and they decide, I am going to take matters in my hand, I'm going to try to protect myself or my family or my things, my livestock, what have you, then you've left the protection. They would have left the protection of Allah Hayam and enter into a place where they are going to be tormented along with the others. This is the way how Allah Hayam is going to sift these nations. He sifted us, He's going to sift them in the same way. And their sifting is not going to finish until after the 1,000 years. They're going to be sifted and sifted and sifted. All right? Because they have to prove that they love Allah Hayam. And no matter what they go through, whether it is even death at their doorstep, they still have to maintain themselves as worshippers of Allah Hayam by believing in Him and trusting in Him. Anything else or anything less, they're going to be destroyed. So these wicked ones, it's not given to them to repent or to see the condition that they're in, to say, well, I'm in so much pain and there's no one to help me, but I will call on Allah Hayam and maybe He will have mercy. No, they will hate Him because they have been given over to condemnation. They're the worshippers of the Satans, of the beast. So He's already given them over to the beast, because He wants to torment them, because they were part of the crew, the agents, the earthly agents of these Satans that tormented His people. So now He's having revenge. They had the opportunity before they took the toxin and before they chose to worship the beast, but because of the darkness within them, they chose to follow after darkness for their own personal gain. Now, this is in reference to the other foolish ones who are and will be, because this is still ongoing, ignorant of the truth. They did not start out thinking, well, I want to be a worshiper of these beast entities. No. How they started out? They started out like normal people, living their normal lives, going to work, making a salary so that they can pay their bills. But then guess what happens? They now have a decision to make. Either they take the toxin, and we know what that is. We're talking about the serpent juice. Either you take it and you carry on with your life because you'll be able to work and travel and do whatnots. Or if you don't, you lose your job. When you lose your income, you're going to lose everything else that is attached to it. I'm talking about these ones. They decided to take the thoughts on so they can continue living under the system. The system demanded it, and they obliged. That's another kind of wickedness, but it's all still part with the worshippers. They're still part of the worshippers of these devils. You have the agents who didn't have to take the toxin because they have the Nephilim bloodline. So they're used as agents to carry out the agendas. But then you have these foolish, ignorant ones that because of a job or because of their material goods, they decided to take the toxin to maintain their lifestyle. So the toxin also have the Nephilim bloodline in it. Yes, it does, along with many other things. And that's one of them. And that's why the Father said, anyone who takes the mark of the beast, I am rejecting you. You're doomed for eternal damnation, eternal destruction. That's the reason why. Because now you do not have the original D-N-A- that you were born with. And anyone out there still thinking that the toxin that was introduced into this world more than 3 years ago is not, or about 3 years ago, is not the mark of the beast. Again, let me say this, you are ignorant. All you have to do is go see what other people have experienced after they've taken it. Some people were not so lucky to die on the spot. There are many people that are suffering because of this thing. Suffering. And they took it because they wanted to keep a job so they can keep their lifestyle going. And in the end, they'll lose their jobs anyway because they can't work. They can't work. They can't function. Anyways, anyone that still thinks that this is not the mark of the beast, you are blind. You're blind and you're also ignorant. And when I say ignorant, I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm stating a fact. Because ignorance is a state of being when you refuse to look at the facts, to look at the truth of the matter and consider it. You reject the truth. You reject the truth. Why? Because the truth disrupts what you want to do and how you want to live. So many people reject the truth and choose the path of ignorance because at the end of the day, they can always claim, I didn't know. But that's not going to work for anyone, especially the southern kingdom. It's not going to work for us. It's not going to work for anyone on this earth. can't claim ignorance when the truth is right before us. Even the same devils that are running this world, they're telling us the truth with a smile on their face because they recognize and they know that people are not going to hear the truth because there's something covering them. There's scales over their eyes and over their ears, and their hearts have become hardened. So even if the powers that be will come right out, and they have been, tell you the truth, your eyes are closed, your ears are deaf, and your hearts are hardened. Can't hear it. You can't receive it. You're ignorant. That's what ignorance does. It's like a darkness that comes upon a person. And it's not hashak either. You are hashak. You are in ignorance because the truth is obscured from you. But when the truth is revealed to you and you reject it, then it's no longer hashak. It's not that kind of darkness anymore. You have now entered into another kind of darkness, which is ignorance. We need not to be ignorant. All right? So these people took the toxin because they were ignorant of the truth. They chose the path of ignorance because it's the path that allows them to continue to live in the lifestyle that the world and society has dictated to us from the time we were little nubs. We have been sold a lie. And we were told all you need to do is to work hard to make the high 5 figures or the high 6-figure salary. And then you've made it. But those kinds of jobs come at a cost. It comes at a cost because with that kind of salary, people tend to live above their means, even though if they lived within their means, they would have been comfortable. But they live above their means, so now they have to make sure that they keep working harder and harder to make it higher and higher. Because it's not sufficient that you have a nice little house and a nice little car. You don't need brand name house and brand name clothes and a brand name car. You need to have that house in a particular neighborhood now. It's not sufficient to stay living within your means. And that is the major trap that a lot of people, especially our people, are living in. They've sold out. They've sold their inheritance for a bowl of beans. And they've sold their souls to the devil at the same time. Okay, let's read on. They never had any love for Al Hayam, only for themselves and the things they lusted after. Exactly, that's who I'm talking about. There's some people out there, they claim they're believers, but at the end of the day, who are their gods? Things that they worship, the things that they buy with their hands, the things that they work for. Those are their gods, not Al Hayam. Heaven forbid if you have to sell your goods and give the money to the poor and go follow him. Come follow him. Heaven forbid if you should have to do that. You would turn around and say, nope, can't do it. Just like the rich young ruler. Just like the rich young ruler. Lusting after things. They were made promises by the beast, and this is the result of obeying the beast and rejecting Alahayam. So the promises by the beast, and we're talking about the ones that are alive today that haven't really exposed themselves, but we know that they're there. We know that the UN is one of the beasts, number 6. It's an empire. It rules this earth like an empire. Just doesn't call itself that. But it calls all the shots, and all the alphabet agencies are part of their system, their empire. And they rule the world through these alphabet agencies. And if you go back 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago, what were the promises made by the same beast empire number 6, the UN? Doesn't matter if it was the WHO or what have you. They're all part of that alphabet agency is part of the UN. It's a branch of the UN, one of its systems. And what did they say? Oh, give us 2 weeks to flatten the curve and life will go back to normal. Oh, if you stay 6 feet apart, everything will go back to normal. Oh, if you stay home and work from home, everything will go back to normal. What else did they say? Oh, if you wear a mask, everything will go back to normal because we're trying to flatten the curve. What else did they say? Oh, if you take the toxin, you'll be doing your due diligence in protecting others and yourself. And then life will go back to normal. Has life gone back to normal? Look at what they're planning now. Look at what they're planning because they're claiming that all these other things are popping up on the surface. More potential demics coming. More potential for what happened more than 3 years ago coming again. Trying to be a little careful with my words because of this the algorithm on this platform. But you know what I'm talking about. And even with all that happening and all the different disasters and what have you, what about the digital ID and the digital this and digital? What about all of that? What about changing money into something else? There's no longer going to be tangible money. Everything is going to be ones and zeros. These people are preparing. They made promises. And at the same time, they're preparing for the next great outbreak. Because when that happens, then all these different little things that you're hearing left, right, and center are going to come together to be a master plan. But going back to what I was saying here, they were made promises by the beast that if they do what they suggest to do, life will go back to normal. And all people ever wanted is for life to go back to normal, so they obeyed, they complied. But they found out the hard way. Life did not come back to normal because some of them didn't even live to see life coming back to normal. And those that were still alive still did not have a normal life because of all the different problems that they had with their bodies not functioning properly. So they had to give up their jobs, and now they're living what? And even for the ones that may not have any serious issues, still not, life still has not gone back to normal. Life has not gone back to normal. So they lied. They lied to persuade people to take this poison. And people gladly obeyed. Listen, I just watched, this was a couple days ago, or maybe even last week. I think it was somewhere in Europe. Don't really want to call the country, but they were encouraging people to come and get their digital ID by doing the scanning using your eye. And you should see the people lining up around the block because they promised to give them some digital currency as a way to thank them for what they're doing. Anytime you see these people paying you to do these wicked things, you gotta know that it can't be anything good. You gotta know it can't be anything good because history tells us that these people never pay you for anything. In fact, they want to take from you, but they don't want to pay you anything. And then suddenly they want to pay you to do all these different things that they want us to do so that they can have control, the ultimate control over us. So you're paying them to control you. Anything that they say, anytime, they are willing to offer you anything so that you can obey them, submit to them, to do the thing that they want you to do. Run in the opposite direction. It's nothing good. It's nothing good. So let's start with verse 10 of Revelation chapter 18 revised. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. Now, at first glance, we may be led to think that the seat of the beast is a throne, where it is actually seated. This is thinking in logical sense, but we have to realize that the book of Revelation was written in a poetic, prophetic manner. And as we read on, then we can grasp the message that is being conveyed. So don't forget that Yahawah was in a vision, and they say a picture speaks 1,000 words. All right, and there are two reasons why Elohim has revealed the end times this way, because it is not given for everyone to see and to understand, right? Based on reading the words on the page. Because it is prophetic, we need Ruach HaKodesh to give the revelation. We need him to give us the understanding. All right? He did it like this for this purpose. And the other reason is because he wants us to submit ourselves to him, to come to him for the revelation. Just like Daniel, he would pray for revelation of the dreams or visions that he had. But many of us, instead of praying and asking Elohim so that he can reveal the truth through his Ruach, We go to the internet, we go to all these different teachers and who have you and concordances and whatnots just to get the understanding. And you will not get the understanding that way. That's why so many people are out there preaching the same error from one person to another. They hear one person say something, it sounds good to their ears, so they pick up on that. They may try to add their own little spin on it, and they run with it, and they start teaching it to others. And others, wow, this sounds like awesome, and then they run with that too. So that's why we have the 12 tribes going into the wilderness teaching out there, and everyone is gravitating towards that teaching, and they're taking it and they're running with it and they're teaching that lie. 12 tribes are not going into the wilderness. Then you have 12 tribes going on luxury liners. There's that teaching as well. And you see people out there pushing this teaching, and others are gravitating towards it because it goes hand in hand with their desires. And a whole bunch of other false teachings that are out there. When we have Ruach HaKodesh teaching us, he reveals his prophecy. He gives us the understanding. So now we can see the big picture, what the prophecy is saying to us. All right? We have to first remember what this beast is comprised of. So remember what the beast is. All right? It has 10 horns, who we know are the 10 kings, and they're the earthly agents of Satan. They're the ones that, with the seventh empire, they will have 10 territories of the earth, because the whole earth is going to be divided into 10 territories. And then afterwards, there'll be 10 kings with no territories. But they'll still rule as kings for a short season. And they're also the worshippers of the beast. They have the Nephilim bloodline. That's why they're the agents, the earthly agents of the Satans. And then you have the 7 heads, which are the 7 systems. All this we went through in the beast of the book of Revelation. I've done that study. Please go and watch that so you can have a clear understanding what these beasts are all about. So these systems are what these systems control our daily lives. All right? You have something like money and economics and trade and commerce, all these different things. These are the 7 main systems that control our lives. And these systems are ran by the earthly agents of Satan as well. And they're also their worshippers. All right? And I did a wonderful study on these systems, still in the study called The Beast of the Book of Revelation. Now, there's also the anti-Messiah. We cannot forget him. The image of the beast. The other worshippers of these beasts, who are the earthly agents that carry out other works and agendas on the earth. And the foolish inhabitants that took the toxon and are now the worshippers of the Satans, whether intentionally or by default. All right? So these are all the different kinds of worshippers of the beast. And these worshippers are considered, or will be considered, the seat of the beast. This 5th vial is poured out on the worshippers of the beast and those who took the toxon. And they are called the seat of the beast. Now the word or the term seat of the beast is not in reference to an actual throne, but it is used metaphorically to show what is sitting on the hearts of these people. Our hearts are considered to be like thrones, where either Al-Hayam sits to reign within us or is Satan. There's no time that nothing sits on your heart. You can't have an empty heart, in other words. So either your heart is filled with the presence of Al-Hayam or is filled with the presence of darkness. Either it's filled with light or it's filled with darkness. The choice is entirely ours to make, based on who or what we choose to worship and obey, because our obedience will show who or what we love. So what you love the most will be sitting on the throne of your heart. So if you love Mammon, the golden calf is going to be sitting on your heart. If you love Al-Hayam, he is going to be sitting on the throne of your heart. We are to love Al-Hayam with all our hearts, minds, body, and with all our strength. And because we love him so passionately and so deeply, we will want to walk obediently in all of his commandments. He will be always in the forefront of our minds day and night, and so his word will be our light and his ruach will be our guide, leading us to be holy and righteous as he is. So the whole idea is whoever sits on your heart or whatever is filling your heart, light, which is the glory of Al-Hayam, because he's sitting on the throne of your heart, it will affect what's going on in your mind. And what is going on in your mind and is syncing with who is living in your heart will affect your actions. All right? That's why it's important that Al-Hayam is the first thing on our minds and the last thing on our mind and throughout the day. We got to be thinking about him or his word, not or, and his word throughout the day. But here's the problem. When we are so busy with life, where does he come in? To the bottom of your to-do list. And you never get to him. And then you wonder why you're in so many battles, why you're so spiritually weary. Because of this. You don't spend enough time with him, if you spend any time at all. And especially in these last days when we need him more than ever, where he needs to be at the forefront of our minds at all times. Remember this command that we as Habanai Ol Yashroal have to remember no matter what we're doing. It is by remembering his commandments that helps us to keep them always on our minds and to do them. How many of you read the commandments every day? How many of you repeat? And we're going to come here to verse 4 and read. How many of you repeat this every day? Let me just read this and then we'll get into that. The Barayam chapter 6 verse 1. That's the book of Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 1. Now these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahawah Al-Hayakam, that is Al-Hayam, your Al-Hayam, plural. So Masha is speaking to the congregation. And he commanded to teach you that you might do them in the land where you go to possess it, that you might fear Yahawah Al-Hayak, that's the other Al-Hayam, now Al-Hayam, your Al-Hayam, singular. So as an individual, your Al-Hayam. To keep all his statutes and his commandments which I command you, you and your son and your son's son, all the days of your life, and that your days may be prolonged. And not only will your days be prolonged, but you'll be healthy too. You'll have a better quality of life. Hear therefore, O Yashwa'al, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily. You'll have many babies, as Yahawah al-Hayam of your fathers have promised you, in the land that flows with milk and honey. So here's the verse 4 of Deuteronomy, or Debar Rayam chapter 6. Hear what it says. Hear, O Yashra'al, Yahawah al-Hayana, Yahawah Ahad, and you shall love Yahawah al-Hayak with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. This is the one command that we need to be always thinking of, repeating, reciting throughout the day and night, then the next day forever. This one verse is so significant to us because it speaks about us reverencing Allah Hayam and loving Him with all our heart, our soul, and our strength. Because when we put these words in action, then there will be no idolatry in our lives. And not only in our lives, but in the lives of our children and in their children and their children's children. All right? We have to keep this particular commandment always on our minds and in our hearts. But how many of us pray this on a daily basis? How about several times in a day? And our children, what they do is they reflect what the parents do. So if the parents aren't doing it, then the children aren't going to do it. That's why he said we have to teach these things to our children. So let me read this in our language. It's a beautiful command that we need not only to memorize it, but we also need to say it. So let's say it. Shama'u Yashwa'al Yahawah Alahayana Yahawah Ahad wa Ahabath Yahawah Alahayak Bakal Lababak wa Bakal Napashat wa Bakal Ma'adak. That is in our language. All right? And that, if you can learn it and you can repeat it no matter where you are, this will keep Allah Hayam at the forefront of your minds, of our minds. Because who is at the forefront of our minds will be the one that we worship, the thing that we worship, the person that we worship. Thing meaning mammon, or person speaking of Allah Hayam. All right. Verse 6, and these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart. He wants these words in our hearts. Not only in our minds, but in our hearts, because that's where Allah Hayam is. And that's where the glory dwells, the light. And you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. So we know that the pagan worshippers in our land, they have these little boxes that they tie on their foreheads and on their hands, and they think all they have to do is recite this and it's done. All right, it's finished. They've done their duty according to this command. But the whole idea about binding these words as a sign, as a token upon our hands, and as frontlets between your eyes. Frontlets between your eyes is speaking of your mind. All right? So if you have these words in your heart and they're on your mind, then the natural thing will be that you will act accordingly, because binding them as a sign upon your hand speaks of works, which speaks of worship. So the thing that you do will reflect what is on your mind, which is also on your heart. All right? That's what verse 8 is saying to us. You can get all religious minded and get those little boxes and tie them up on your hands and on your mind, on your forehead. Doesn't do anything for you if you got mammon in your heart or some other idol. Doesn't do anything for you. And that's why these people in our land can do all the wickedness that they're doing right now. All right. Verse 9, and you shall write them upon the posts of your house and on your gates. So what he's saying here, as a way to remind us, because he knows that we're flesh and we're people, but to remind us of verse 4, our command. Take it and write it and place it by the front door as you go out, and place it on the other side as you come in. Now that's the house. If you have a gate, you do the same thing too. Why? Because when you get up in the morning and you go about, sometimes some people, they forget. They get busy because the baby is crying or the children need attention, getting them ready for school and what have you. But then you get to the front door because you're about to leave, and the first thing that your eyes should see, because you put it in a place where your eyes must see it, is this verse. And what you're supposed to do is to stop and take the 10 seconds that it would take to recite this verse. You and your children, if they're able to talk. And then you leave. And then you get to the gate. It's the same thing. You see it on your gate. What do? You pause for another 10 seconds. 2 speaks of witness. So now you have set the tone of your day, even though you got up and you got a little busy. He has interrupted your life, and you have placed him at the forefront of your day. And tell me if that is not going to make a big difference in how your day is going to be after you pause for those 2 sessions of a prayer, praying back to him the command that he gave to us. Okay, let's do the reverse. You had a busy day at work, and you come home, open up just before you open your gate, your eyes see the Barayam 6, verse 4, and you pause 10 seconds, and you repeat this verse like a prayer. You recite it, and suddenly That busy, crazy day, you left it outside the gate. You've left it outside the gate. In fact, all the fatigue and the frustration and the anxiety and whatever else that comes along with whatever you have been enduring all day long in the office or wherever you work, it has to remain outside. Why? Because you paused and you've placed Yahawah at the forefront. You enter in your gate. Now you come to the front door, and once again, you see these words, and you paused for 10 seconds to pray these words back to Him. Trust me, when you walk into that house, you're going to be a happy camper. You're not even going to remember what happened at work. Not until you get back there the next day. You understand what I'm saying here? He sets the tone for our day, coming and going. All right? And when we get that sense of peace within us, the next step for us is to give Him praise. Because you remember, in a minute, I was so tired and frustrated. I was dragging my feet walking home. Or wherever, whatever the case may be. I was dragging my feet until I got to my gate. And I made that little prayer. And then all of a sudden, I have a surge of energy. You get to the front door, you get another zap of energy. And all of a sudden now you have like a second wind. Now you're functioning like a human being. This is what He wants to do for us when we put Him first. He don't expect us to be living like, how some people are. I don't even want to go there. He understands that we have things in our lives that we need to take care of. And He doesn't mind us taking care of those things as long as He is first. You put Him first and then you take care of your things. And when you put Him first, the things that you have to take care of will be nothing. You know why? Because He wants you to come back to Him. And if you're too concerned and worried over the things, then your mind cannot get back to Him. So what He does, when you put Him first, He helps you to deal with the issues or situations or what have you, so that you can come back to Him now. You can get back to Him in worship. You can get back to Him in thinking about a psalm or some verse or a dream or a vision or what have you. He gets your attention. And throughout the day, yes, you're in and out of conversation with Him. And He helps you throughout your day to deal with issues and problems that may pop up at work. This is how Yahawah operates with us. But when we shut Him out, He can't help us. And then we have all these problems at work that are that is ready to blow our brain to smithereens. And you feel that you will pull your hair out because no matter what you do, there's something keep popping up. You can't seem to get above it. It's always pressing you down. You need to put Him first. And when you learn to put Him first and have Him throughout the day, you worship Him. You don't need to in fact, no one needs to know that you're worshiping Him. Have a scripture. Take a few seconds to close your eyes and ponder on that scripture. Ponder on Him for a few seconds every hour. or every other hour, what have you. And you will see how sweet and smooth like silk your day would flow. Boss come to you with a problem, ain't no problem. Because Allah Hayam will give you the solution. Think of one of our brethren, or for one of our forefathers, Yahawah, who was with him to make him an excellent manager in Potiphar's house. Who gave him favor? Because Yahawah, who is Joseph, put Allah Hayam first. And so he made him an excellent worker. Anyways, that's how you're supposed to be living your life. And not only you live your life that way, you are to be teaching your children the same things too. Because children naturally want to mimic their parents. And you can't wait till your child grows up then to try to enforce the commands of Allah Hayam upon him. Because by that time, you're sending them to public school. They're exposed to all kinds of demons out there. And this is the reason why you need, from the time they're little babes, to start reciting these words in the ears of your children, so that they too will learn to recite it for themselves. And they too can take these words with them in their hearts to wherever they need to go. So that the demons would not have a field day with your children like they're having with other people's children right now. You want to protect your children, you better teach them the word of Allah Hayam and have them planted in their hearts. All right, let me just move on. I already warned all y'all people, if you got children in public school, take them out. Take them out. They got the devils in there teaching your children a lot of garbage now. They're not teaching them anything about education. They're educating them on things that they don't need to know. They're coming out to school and they can't read and they can't count. Anyways, this was commanded to Habanai ol Yashwa'al to do forever throughout their generations, to ensure that Allah Hayam was always before us as a people and not an idol. It is very easy to be drawn away into idolatry, especially if we neglect Allah Hayam and our worship to Him. It's so easy. Your job could become an idol. Oh, I'm too busy to pray. I'm too busy to spend time in the Word. I'm too busy to do anything for Allah Hayam. All I want to do is go to work, come home, sit in front of television or what have you, relax, and then go to bed. You don't even pray at night. And then you expect the favor of Allah Hayam to rest upon you. Doesn't work that way. Because self becomes an idol, because what you want is what you're going to do to please you. That's the worship of self. That's idolatry. Anything else will lead us away from Him and His light into the gross darkness where the devils are. And this is the case in point with these worshippers of the beast. The seed of the beast is in reference to anyone who worships the beast. Hence, their hearts are given over to it, to dwell in and reign over them. So they gave their hearts over to idolatry in all its many forms. All right? And they become worshippers of that idol. There is no chance of repentance at this point of time for these ones, and so they must endure the torments until they are cast into the lake of fire. We know for sure that the phrase seed of the beast is in reference to the worshippers of the beast by looking at the next sentence. And this next sentence is, and they gnaw their tongues for pain. So who are the they? Who are the they? If he's speaking about the seat of the beast, and then the next sentence talks about they gnaw their tongues for pain, then obviously the seat of the beast is in reference to people. All right? So I have written here, who are they but none other than the worshippers of the beast. They are already in great pain from the previous plagues, the sores. They are thirsty and having to drink stinky blood for water, then to be scorched by the intense heat of the sun, which will not do those sores any good. And now this plague, darkness. So let's look at what this darkness is all about. Will it be like the 3 days of darkness? So let us investigate further in regards to this darkness. Now, this darkness in the Greek word, in Greek, is called skotou, meaning to cover with darkness, to darken, or to blind the mind. It is only here in this scripture that this word skotou is used. It's not used anywhere else. However, the root word for skotou is skotos, and we've seen that word skotos when we did the study on the 3 days of darkness. Part 1, we understanding the darkness, we look at all the different kinds of darkness, and this word came up, skotos, and it means to darken the eyesight or blindness, also of ignorance respecting divine things and human duties, and the accompanying unrighteousness and immorality, together with their consequent misery in hell. So that's a long description of this word skotos, but it helps us to understand about skotou, all right, or skotou. This now gives us the understanding that this darkness is nothing like the 3 days of darkness, which is Hashak. But it is a darkness to their minds and their eyes that will consume these people. So this is another kind of darkness. They will no longer be able to see and understand like people any longer, to reason sensibly, because they will be like beasts. So this darkness that is coming upon them is going to transform them into the beast, like the beast that they worship. All right. To make this absolutely clear, this darkness also comes with great pain. So not only is this darkness transforming them into be beast creatures, no longer human, because they can't reason like humans anymore, but it's painful. And imagine they already have great pain. They're already enduring pain from the sores, because those aren't going away. Those sores are going to be with them forever, even in eternity, in eternal damnation. Those sores are going with them. So now they've been converted, transformed into beasts. They're no longer humans. Let's read on. This pain is so great that they will literally chew on their tongues because of their agony. This calls to mind or calls to remembrance of zombies. And when I talk about zombies, you know, they did lots of movies about these Walking Dead. You know, lately they've been talking about that too. And what do those Walking Dead look like? Literally, like the dead walking, right? Full of sores. They don't look human anymore. They don't act human anymore. This is how these people are going to be. And so these people are transformed into similar beastly creatures full of sores, drinking stinky blood, scorched and driven mad in their minds by Skotu and with their pain. Alahayam can do this as he has done it before with the king of Babylon, but not to this extreme. This extreme is because this is the last of the plagues, and mankind has been given many opportunities to turn their lives around, to repent of their sins, and this now are the rebellious ones that have been condemned, and this is their condemnation. This is how they're going to live in eternity in the lake of fire. This is exactly it. Scorching sun, sores on their bodies, acting like creatures and no longer human. This is how they're going to live their lives. Well, they don't have life anymore. This is how they're going to be in the lake of fire. This is it. So this isn't going to roll off of them and then they get to come before the throne, the white throne for judgment. No, these ones aren't coming nowhere near his white throne. When they die, they're going straight to the lake of fire. Straight to the lake of fire. So let's see in Daniel chapter 4 verse 31. This is the book of Daniel. While the word was in the king's mouth, and this is King Nebuchadnezzar, there fell a voice from heaven saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from you. And they shall drive you from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make you to eat grass as oxen. And 7 times shall pass over you until you know that Yahawah rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomsoever he will. So this king Nebuchadnezzar was gloating. He had a dream, and Daniel interpreted the dream and tell him, listen, all that you have, the Most High Yahawah gave it to you. Don't you dare gloat over what you have. Don't boast in your heart about what you have, because what you have is what he has given to you. You need to give him the glory, because if you don't, this is what is going to happen to you. He's going to turn you into a beast for 7 years. And that was fine with Nebuchadnezzar, but you know the heart of wickedness. He could not help but one day gloat over his kingdom. Oh, this is because of me. I did this. I made myself great. And before the words could even fully come out of his mouth, he was transformed into this creature. All right, now he got to eat grass like a cow. And 7 times shall pass over you. Let me see if I read that already. Yes, verse 33. The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven from men and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like birds' claws. So he turned into a creature. Alahayam can do whatever he wants to do. So don't think that he's not going to turn these creatures here into beasts. These people into creatures or beasts. You want to call them zombs? Call them zombs. Whatever they are, they're creatures. They're going to be creatures of darkness. And this is how they're going to be for all eternity. All right. Alahayam can and will cause these people to be no longer be like people and be like the creatures they worship. Beastly. Okay, let's look now at verse 11. But before we go into verse 11, we know that when the angels fell from heaven, before they fell, they were beautiful to behold because they had the glory of Alahayam. After they fell, they're no longer the beautiful angels that Alahayam created, but they are hideous. But they were still able to transform themselves into, somewhat beautiful to behold creatures. until now. Until now. The 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 reality of who these Satans and fallen angels are will be revealed in the likeness of these people that are transformed with the sores. All right? The Satans, the fallen angels, the Nephilim spirits, they're all hideous creatures. All right? They're hideous to behold. That's why Allah Hayam does not allow us to see them. Otherwise, we will be petrified with fear. So he hides he hides them. They're spirits around us, but we can't see them. We don't want to see them. All right, verse 11 of Revelation chapter 18 revised. And blasphemed Allah Hayam of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. So this is the creatures now. They're creatures drinking bloody water, where water that's actually is blood, but it was once water, and it's stinky blood at that. That's what they're gonna drink, but not in the lake of fire. In the lake of fire, there's no fluids there. There are no liquids. It's a dry place, a dry, hot place, smelly like sulfur. It's fire and brimstone. The only thing that is there, in fact, no. What is there is scorching heat. Devils, demons, Nephilim spirits, you name it, diseases, death, hell, all those wicked things are there. But you see, now because they don't have a right mind, now because they're no longer thinking like humans, they're thinking like creatures. They've gone insane. No wonder they're not going to repent, because they don't have a mind anymore. They don't have a human mind, that is, anymore. And now because of their pains and their sores, you think not? No, they're not going to repent. They're going to curse Allah Hayam because of the beast that they once worshipped. They've given their selves and submitted to the beast, and now they've become like the beast. Despite their torments and their pain, these worshippers of the beast will blaspheme Allah Hayam, which will come naturally to them, as they will hate him. They hated him before they were transformed, and now they hate him even more after they've transformed. Usually a person going through the worst time of their life may think to turn to Allah Hayam as a last resort, thinking that they'll have nothing to lose. This is the mindset of a normal, rational person who's hit rock bottom. But those who are filled with evil will do the opposite. They will curse their way to the lake of fire with not a drop of remorse or fear. And so it will be for these creatures full of sores. They will curse Allah Hayam all the way to the lake of fire. I remember many, many years ago, I went to a hospital. I went to the hospital because a relative of mine had taken ill. And we went into the hospital ward. There were other people there, right? There were beds on both sides of the wall. It's a room, and there's beds facing each other on both sides of the room. So we went to visit this relative, and he was talking about one of the patients in the room with him. He said he could hardly sleep in the night because this person was cursing and carrying on and stripping off his clothes and what have you. Right? So I asked him why he did that. He did it because He was in pain. He was in torment. He probably felt he was in torment. But also, my relative knew the person. And he said this person lived a very wicked life. Right? He led a very wicked life. And so as he lived, now he's dying, and he's dying the same way. Dying like a wicked man. Curses on his mouth. He's in pain. He's in torment. He is cursing. And few days later, I went back to visit this relative of mine. He was resting, eyes closed, and you could see a little tear in the corner of his eye. And just say nothing at all, just lie there. And on a good day, when this relative of mine was able to speak, I asked him, like, were you in pain when you, well, obviously he was. But he said, yes, I was in so much pain. And all he can do is pray. All he was doing was praying. He wanted to talk to me, talk to us, because it was me and my other family members that were with me. But he just couldn't. So he said, I just go quiet and I just cry out to the Most High. This is when your heart is in the right place. No matter how much torment you're going through, whether the pain is unbearable, you hold on to the Most High. In comparison to this man who was doing the opposite, because in his heart was darkness. All right? And I am saying this based on the things that this man was doing. All right? But what I'm trying to show you is the comparison of people. Same thing with another relative of mine who was also dying and was in a lot of pain. And this person went through the same process of just being quiet. Just being quiet. And this is what happens when our hearts are in the right place. And as a matter of fact, this same person started seeing angels around them. I kid you not. I kid you not. They were dying. They were starting to see angels. They, they called them nurses. And when it was said, because I was not, in fact, I'm giving away too much information. But when it was spoken to me, I immediately felt, or heard rather, that they were not nurses, they were angels. This person saw people in white around them, surrounding them. When in actual fact, at that same time, when they asked a question, who are all these people around me? And the person that was there sitting by her bedside didn't see anyone but herself. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm the only person here. And when it was spoken to me, I said, because she's seeing the angels that are surrounding her. When we give our hearts to Yahawah, it doesn't matter how much torment or torture we're going through. We've seen it with the apostles when they were persecuted, when they were beaten, and what have you. What did they do? They got up, dust themselves off, and give Yahawah the glory and give him all the praises that we are found worthy to be persecuted for his name's sake. Now that's a heart that's filled with light. When your hearts are blackened by evil and wickedness, all you're going to do is cursed. And we see it even amongst our brethren. You put two brethren together, opposing with opposing doctrines, and watch how they behave to each other. Are they going to agree to disagree and part in love? Or are they going to fight and bicker? That's why I don't get into it with anybody. Too many devils out there wearing sheep's clothing. All right, let's move on. Verse 12 of Revelation chapter 18 revised, and the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. So we know from actual reports that the great river Euphrates is drying up at an alarming rate. And these are recent reports. This is something that is happening even right now as we speak. That's why I'm saying to you, we are living in the end times. The river Euphrates is drying up. If you doubt me, Google it. There are videos that people have taken before and after of the river Euphrates, and you will see that it is drying up. All right, so it just shows you that once these vials are poured out, it's going to be in quick succession. Now, this will help us to gauge how close we are to the end, because by the sixth vial, the river will be completely dried up, allowing the kings of the east to have easy access. But to where? And who are these kings? The only kings that will be existing at this time will be the 10 horns, or kings of the beast empire. This is empire number 8, the one that was being ridden by the great whore. Remember, this beast destroyed the whore, you know. Yes. It pillaged her and burned her, destroyed her. And it was given to them by Yahawah to destroy the whore. Now remember that the earth will be divided up into 10 regions controlled by 10 kings. These kings at first, during the reign of the 7th empire, will have power as they have the crowns, but these kings of the 8th empire will not have any crowns and also no territories, as this empire is being taken down systematically by Yahawah. And now these kings are the ones who killed the whore, and now they have turned their attention to the land Yashraal, where Hamashiach will return to be Malakana, our king. So this is that war that Yahawah, Malakana, Hamashiach will encounter. In fact, he will be coming with his saints on white horses to deal with this war, to deal with these kings. All right, you're going to see that in chapter 19. Now, there are going to be two final wars before the world comes to its end, and there are the war of Armageddon or Armageddon. All right, which will occur just before the reign of Hamashiach. So as he's coming to the earth to establish his kingdom on the earth, he will fight this war to destroy 3 beasts. Remember, Yahawah destroyed the first beast, the Satan of this beast called the whore of Babylon. Hamashiach is going to destroy the anti-Messiah, the beast of the 8th empire, the 8th empire. And we're talking about the Satans now, not the actual earthly entities. They're going to be destroyed. But Yahawah, and Yahawah, Hamashiach, they're going to be dealing with the actual Satans and casting them into the lake of fire. All right? So we have the Satan that will possess the anti-Messiah, the Satan that will possess the beast empire number 8, and the Satan that will possess the image of the beast empire, whether it's 7 or 8, doesn't matter. But the image, all right, the statue, whatever it is that they make with their hands, is going to be possessed with the Satan because it's going to be able to speak. So Hamashiach is going to deal with these Satans, but he's also going to deal with the earthly agents that will be the armies of these Satans. All right? We're going to see all of that in chapter 19. Now, the second and last war will be the war of Gog and Magog, due to occur after the 1,000-year reign of Hamashiach is completed. Now, I know some people talk about the Psalm 83 war. Listen, there are only two final wars left at this point of time. It will be the war of Armageddon before the reign of Hamashiach, and the war of Gog and Magog after the reign of Hamashiach, after the 1,000-year reign of Hamashiach. And that Gog and Magog war, that's the final Satan that was locked up in the pit. In chapter 19, we're going to see that he is cast. This is Gadriel, is going to be cast into the bottomless pit. A seal is put over him, and he's covered over, and the earth is going to have peace for 1,000 years during the reign of Hamashiach. In chapter 20, you're going to see him being released, and he's going to gather up all these armies together. That's what I'm saying. The Gentiles, they're still with their sin nature. They have not been cleansed like the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. They still have that sin nature, but for 1,000 years, they are allowed to multiply, and they are allowed to live in peace and prosperity. They still have to live according to the commands of Elohim, Hamashiach, but many of them will not be true in their hearts towards him. And it shows when Gadriel, I'm getting way ahead of myself because this is chapter 20, right? But I'm just saying, they're going to join themselves to him to be in his army. And that last Satan, Elohim, Yahawah, will destroy. And that's the war of Gog and Magog. And I'm going to do a separate study with that. It's going to be part of chapter 20. Chapter 20 is going to be a huge chapter. And I'm going to do the war of Armageddon, because that is in connection to Joel chapter 3. The book of Joel chapter 3. And the war of Gog and Magog is Ezekiel 38 and 39. All right? So we're going to look at those separate scriptures. We're going to do a separate study of these two wars. All right? So let's continue on. These kings of the beast empire, number 8, will cross the dried up Euphrates River to wage war against Hamashiach and the southern kingdom, because the southern kingdom is coming back with him. All right? Because now he's going to make us 12 tribes in his hand and in our land when they return to the earth on white horses. This war will be covered in chapter 19. Now they are preparing themselves for this war, which we know they will lose. So this is not yet. These beastly creatures are now preparing themselves for a big war against Hamashiach and the southern kingdom when they come. They're coming from heaven. Verse 13 of Revelation chapter 18 revised. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. So these unclean spirits like frogs are the Satans that possess these entities. So let's read on. The 3 unclean spirits like frogs that will come out of the mouths of these entities are the Satans. The dragon mentioned is the physical representation of the image of the NWO, which is the New World Order, number 8. Such actually is number 7, because number 7 and number 8, they're going to be identical, except they're going to have different Satans ruling them. All right, Gadriel was in the Seventh Empire, which is the New World Order, number 7, the technology-based empire. When it was taken down by seal number 6, he was cast out, and that it went underground. The NWO went underground until Azazel was released from the bottomless pit. And I've done all of this before, okay? Go to the beast of the book of Revelation. That study explains all of that. So the image, the dragon mentioned is the physical representation of the image of the NWO that was made, and it will be possessed by Satan. So please remember that Yahawah was in a vision seen in the spiritual realm, and all these images that he saw were spiritual, and they were prophetic imagery. These images are symbolic, and although the NWO is a combined effort of wicked people on many different tiers to dominate the world, this entity was seen as a beast in his vision. A picture, it paints 1,000 words. And he also speaks to us 1,000 words. The message that we need to receive from Yahawah's visions of these beast empires is to know who is really behind them and what their agendas are and why they have their agendas. The agenda is about control, the enforced worship of the Satans, and of course destruction if worship requirements are not met. And these Satans know that their time is short, and for this brief period of time they are allowed to run their agendas. And this will bring about the division of the sheep from the goats, and the sheep being the true worshippers of Yahawah, and the goats are the worshippers of these Satans. So this is what these evil spirits, these Satans, are all about. And we see it happening today. We see it happening today. All right? They have us under their control, and they're gaining more and more control every day with all their agendas. And so now they know that their time has grown short. Actually, it's coming to an end. So they no longer need the dragon. They no longer need the image of the NWO. They no longer need the beast empire. They no longer need the false prophet. So they're coming out and they're showing their true form to bring about their armies, to lead them into battle against Hamashiach and the southern kingdom. In many cases in the Bible, we see the unclean spirits as foul spirits, or they call them familiar spirits, where many can possess one man, as in the case of the man possessed in Gadarenes. In this case, these are what we know as Nephilim spirits. So Nephilim spirits are often referred to as unclean spirits. They're lower class spirits, evil spirits. All right? They don't have as much power as the fallen angels or the Satans, but they have a portion of their powers because they're the offspring of the fallen angels. Let's see where he left off. In this case, let me read that again. In this case, these are what we know as Nephilim spirits, where a great number can possess one man. But in the case of a Satan, they will not share their possession with other spirits, as they are like the generals. So when Satan possesses a body, it is only him in that body, because he's like a general. He's like a general. The unclean spirits, the Nephilim spirits, you can put the unclean spirits, like the Nephilim spirits, 6,000 of them can possess one person. All right? In this case, Yochanan was describing their attribute as being unclean because they're wicked, evil spirits. So these unclean spirits are wicked spirits that look like frogs. They're not Nephilim spirits, they're Satan's. Mark chapter 5, verse 8. For he said unto him, Come out of the man, you unclean spirit. And he asked him, What is your name? And he answered, saying, My name is Legion, for we are many. So this man was possessed by a legion of demons, devils, not Satans, unclean spirits. And I believe a legion back in those days was about 6,300 or something like that, because it's in reference to how many people are in a Roman army. It's called a legion, right? A legion in Roman army is made up of about 6,000 soldiers, something like that. All right. So this, what Yochanan was describing, is the attribute of these Satans. They're wicked, they're evil. From the beginning of these studies of Revelation, we discover that there are only 5 Satans. One is currently locked away, that's Azazel, until the end, while the other 4 are running around rampant, carrying out their evil agendas. These are the ones that will possess the evil entities that will control this world, including its inhabitants. We have looked at these entities in detail in the studies called the Beast of the Book of Revelation. So the one that's locked away as Azazel, he's going to come back and possess the Beast Empire number 8. And then Gadriel is going to be locked away in Revelation chapter 19. All right? Coming out of the mouths of these evil entities, this is according to the vision that Yochanan saw, are evil, wicked spirits that will resemble frogs. These 3 Satans in their hideous form will assemble their armies that are all part of the beast empire, part of its 7 systems, as the beast will have its own military. It will also enlist many of its worshippers to help take down Hamashiach and his saints. Remember, these worshippers of these beasts are transformed to be like their masters, the Satans, to be beasts like them. And they will hate Alahayam. Therefore, they will gladly enlist to be a part of the armies of the beast. We will learn more about this war in the next chapter. So let's look at chapter 14 of Revelation, chapter 18 revised. For they are spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them to that great battle of Alahayam Shaddai. So the spirits of devils working miracles. And that's the main idea about these Satans. They have power to work miracles, but they're not really miracles. They're like magic, right? Because only Alahayam can work miracles. All right. This is the true form of these Satans. They're devils that will possess the whore, the beast empires, the anti-Messiah, and the image of the beast, in order for these entities to have power to carry out their evil agendas. That's how they're going to be able to control the inhabitants on the earth, through all this witchcraft that they do. All right? They do witchcraft. It's sorcery, it's magic. This will be the source of evil power of these earthly entities, which will enable them to perform magic, which will be like miracles. This will cause the inhabitants of the earth to be in awe of these miracles, causing them to worship the beast. And if you don't think that magic actually do exist, well, I wouldn't encourage you to look it up to prove a point. Just take my word for it. There's a lot of evil power on this earth that is done through the earthly agents here on this earth, because they are possessed by unclean spirits, or they're possessed by fallen angels, because the fallen angels have more power than unclean spirits. So the higher an earthly agent goes in their occult the higher they grow in their occult society, and the more wicked things that they have to perform in order to receive the evil powers, a lot of them have it because the Satans and the fallen angels give them portions of their evil powers to do things, crazy things. And I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to put that thought or what have you in your minds, right? Let evil remain where it is. Just know that there's a lot of evil witchcraft out there, and it can appear to people to be like magic. That's why a lot of people are attracted to witchcraft, because they have entered into a realm of darkness. They don't think of it as darkness, but they've entered into a realm and they're experiencing a different kind of power. And they're seeing things that they normally cannot do. And that's what is attractive to them, that they can do these things that normal people cannot do. I can give you many examples, but like I said, I'm not going to go there. As a matter of fact, I was just watching a very, it's a doctor. It's a doctor who does this reaction to different things that people do. This is a doctor, right? And for the most part, it's a wholesome show to watch. And I like to watch to hear, because I like anything that deals with medical stuff. That I have a very expansive interest, right? Interest in lots of different things. But this particular one has to do with body modifications, right? And I saw the thumbnail of this video, and I might have watched like 5 minutes of it, and I had to turn it off because I realized, right, I don't expose myself to the darkness. It's one thing when you don't realize that you are exposing yourself to darkness, and then when you realize, you need to turn it off. Because all these different body modifications, whether it's tattooing or piercings or what have you, especially the extreme ones. We're not talking about one tattoo here or one tattoo. We're talking about severe body modifications. Severe. I mean extreme body modifications. I'm not interested in that. I'm sorry. And I even deleted it off my page. Right? Because you have to be tampering, you have to be dabbling in darkness in order to do these kinds of things to your body. To make yourself look like a creature and not like a human being. And you know what? The nerve of these people, when they try to find a job and they don't get hired, they get offended. Can you imagine you walking around with all these things in your face and your arms and your neck and what have you? You got your eyeball completely black. Even the white of your eye is completely black, and you walk into to a job interview and you expect to be hired. Who's going to hire a hideous creature like that? Right? Who's going to hire you? You can't get offended. You can't get upset. So these people are possessed with unclean spirits. And because they're possessed with unclean spirits, they want to change themselves into the image of their masters. That's why they do it. That's why you do it. It's not just about people, having like a sleeve tattoo or what have you. It's nothing like that. We're talking about hideous modifications to their body. Some of them go cutting off bits and pieces. So, and you know what? I was not interested. I'm like, no, these are demons, devils possessing these people. I don't want to see it. right? This is what they do, and they do it in exchange for, this is the point that I was trying to make, because there was one person that was doing something that was so extraordinary. The only way that you can explain it is to know that this person is receiving dark powers to be able to do this thing. I'm not going to say it because it's not worth saying it. All right. It's not worth it. But that's the what I saw. And I said, you know what? I don't want to see anymore. I'm done. I'm done. So these people receive a portion of whatever demon or devil or unclean spirit that they are serving. They receive a portion of their power, and it becomes like magic. You ever see some of these? There's this one guy by the name of Blaine that does these extraordinary tricks. They're not tricks. That's witchcraft. This person is a high level acting witch. They're a high level witch, or whatever you call them, wizard or warlock or whatnots, right? They're high level. I remember him from the time when he first started out. He was doing these little simple magic tricks, and now the man has grown to doing these extraordinary things. Extraordinary. But they call it magic. All right. Now that's the source of the source of evil power that will enable these earthly entities to carry out their magic tricks, and which will look like miracles, and this will cause the inhabitants of the earth to be in awe of these miracles, causing them to worship the beast. And that's why a lot of people pay a lot of money to go and see these so-called magicians. I know the old-fashioned magician was all about is using trickery, but these new ones, they're into dark arts. And people pay money to go and watch witchcraft. And at the same time, they're casting curses upon every single person that is watching their so-called magic tricks. You see the hand signals that they do? All right. Revelation chapter 13, verse 3, and I saw one of the heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the earth. So you see, even then, you see the people worship the dragon because they were in awe of the power of the beast. All right? The dragon, gave power unto the beast, which we know is the beast empire. One of the heads that were wounded, we know, is a system that came back to life. And the people were like, how is this even remotely possible? Because yesterday it was dead. We heard that this head was dead, and now today is alive again. How is this even possible that within 24 hours this head is restored, and not only restored, but it is functioning better than the old head? I already told you it's economy, right? They're going to attack the economy because they're going to reinvent it, all right? That's all in that same study that I told you about. So let's go on. Verse 15 of Revelation chapter 18 revised. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments, lest he walks naked and they see his shame. This is a very interesting statement. Now, this warning will be to the righteous of the Gentile nations, that Hamashiach will come unexpectedly like a thief. Has he not said that to us, the 12 tribes? He said that, I believe, in Revelation when he spoke to one of the assemblies. He's always comparing himself to a thief, because how a thief behaves, not what the thief has done, not about stealing, but it's about the nature of a thief. A thief is not going to come and break into your house while you're in the house, and he's not going to come when you expect the house to be broken into, right? A thief isn't going to walk up to your front door while you're still in the house, but he comes at the time when you least expect him to come, when he knows that the house is vacant. All right? So it is the unexpected nature that is connected to a thief. That's why Hamashiach compares his coming, his return to the earth, either in the clouds or his second coming, to a thief. All right? Because those that have not been watching and praying and waiting for him to return, it will come on them unawares. But those that have been praying and watching for the signs, it will not come on them unawares. So this is a warning to the righteous of the Gentile nations. They still got to be watching, because he will come unexpectedly like a thief, and this is his second coming to the earth. Hence the reason why he warns us all to be watchful, to be aware, be vigilant, and to be expecting him at any given moment when we will least expect him to come. So this is definitely for the Gentile nations and not for the 12 tribes. The southern kingdom is already with him in third heaven. The northern kingdom is safely in our land. So it's not up to us to be watching at this point of time. This is a message to the Gentile nations, because his second coming is at the door. Yet, if we are vigilant, then his return will be expected. This is for the southern kingdom, the northern kingdom, and of course the Gentile nations. So we, the southern kingdom, we are told that he's returning for us in the clouds. We have to be watchful, all right, for his return in the clouds. The northern kingdom, they too have to be watchful, because he's the one who is going to lead them into the land. He's going to be their deliverer. So they too have to be watchful. But the way how he's returning for the southern kingdom, he's not coming actually on the land, on the earth. He is coming in the clouds. And when he returns for the northern kingdom to lead them to the land of Yahawah, he's coming as a pillar of light, a pillar of fire by day, a pillar of fire by night, and a pillar of cloud by day, like he did for our forefathers. But this return to the earth, he is coming as king, as Malak, to reign on the earth for 1,000 years. And this is what the righteous of the Gentiles are being warned about. They need to be watchful for him to come. Matthew chapter 24, verse 42. Watch therefore, you know not what hour your Adawan, your master, will come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch, meaning what time, the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up or broken into. Verse 44. Therefore be you also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, that's supposed to be think, the Son of Man comes. So, why this is a warning to the southern kingdom is because before they are regathered into the kingdom, there's a phenomenal event that is going to take place, and it's called the 3 days of darkness. And I just completed 6 parts to this study. Please go and watch it. I know the Catholics have been given their version of this event, but what they're saying is all lies. The only thing that they say is correct, the 3 days of darkness. That's the only thing that's correct. Everything else that they say is a big fat lie. And I showed you in the scriptures and the Apocrypha how these 3 days of darkness are going to play out. And these 3 days of darkness will be the final sifting for the southern kingdom. That's why Elohim Yahawah Hamashiach, Elohim Hamashiach wants us to watch and be ready. Because when the 3 days of darkness come, it is the precursor to his return for his southern kingdom, to his coming in the clouds. And when those 3 days of darkness, when that darkness descends upon the earth for 3 days, at that point of time it descends, it means the fate of the southern kingdom is sealed. The righteous will be sealed and preserved, and they will have light in their homes. The glory of Elohim will be in their homes, and the rebels of the southern kingdom will be tormented, and then eventually they'll be killed off and buried. Elohim himself is going to bury them. All that is written. All that I've done in the study called the 3 days of darkness. All right. All that I have already done. Please go and watch that video. Okay. Those studies. It's amazing. It's amazing study. All right. It's an amazing study. But he wants us to be ready. You have to be prepared before the darkness comes, because once the darkness comes, there's nothing you can do to change the outcome for yourself. Because if you're not sealed in the righteousness of Yahawah, of Hamashiach, that is, if you're not sealed in the righteousness of our Savior, our Mashiach, then you're doomed for destruction. And that's why he says, be ready. Be ready. Be prepared. And how do you prepare yourself? Not with things, not getting candles and all these crazy things that people are doing, but he wants us to get our hearts ready, because the light first has to be inside of us. Just like we talk about the heart, the mind, and then our actions. And our actions speaks of worship. All right? So we're to watch. But if you're too busy with life, too busy working, too busy doing other things, then you're not going to watch. You're not going to prepare yourselves. And this day will come upon you unawares. But let's get back to the Gentiles. The believers of the Gentile nations are also warned to keep their garments, lest they walk naked and their shame is exposed. So what is these garments that they have to keep, to guard, to protect? Let's read on. This is a prophetic way in which Hamashiach is warning them to make sure they are covered in his righteousness and walking in his holiness. For these are our covering. And these garments are what Elohim sees, and we are preserved. And that's why you hear me keep speaking about walking in righteousness, walking in holiness, because these are the divine attributes of Elohim. And as he is, so we must be. And these are our garments. These are our covering today. This is what we are robed in. This is what we're clothed in, so that we can go before the throne of grace. This helps us to go before Elohim Yahawah to pray, because when he looks upon us, he sees the righteousness of his son. He sees his holiness. And so that's why Hamashiach is warning them, you have to keep your garments. You have to keep faith. You have to keep believing so that you will keep walking in righteousness and holiness. And that's what's going to preserve them as it had preserved us until we are completely cleansed of our sin nature. Without these garments, we are naked. Our sin nature is exposed, just like Adam and Yahawah were when they sinned in the Garden of Eden. They lost their light garment, the result of disobedience, which caused them to be naked with their shame. Until the righteous of the Gentile nations are cleansed of their sin nature, they have to make sure that they keep, they protect, and guard their garments always. They have to make sure that they are always walking in obedience to Allah, obeying all of His commandments. If not, they will revert to who they were, Gentile heathens. All right, they revert to being heathens again. Chapter 16 of Revelation, chapter 18 revised, and he gathered them together into a place called in Oberai tongue Harmageddon, which is Armageddon. Allah will draw these devils and their armies into a place called Harmageddon, and this is after they cross the great river Euphrates, entering into our land. Harmageddon is north of Yahawah, a vast valley where they will ride out with their horses and other animals to war against Hamashiach and his saints coming with him. Allah lures these creatures and he will lure these creatures and their armies into his place where he will destroy them. And we see this happening in the other war, the war of Gog and Magog. This is one of the two wars that I have spoken of that will occur before the end of the world. This war, Harmageddon, is also spoken about in Joel chapter 3, which is referred to as the Valley of Decision or the Valley of Yahawashpat. The Valley of Yahawashpat, or you hear it called Jehoshaphat. So the Valley of Jehoshaphat or the Valley of Yahawashpat. Many have confused this prophecy of Joel 3 to be another war in the end times. There are only two wars. There's a war before Hamashiach reigns as king, and there's a war after his reign. But this cannot be so. If you look at the words carefully of the prophet Joel, you will see that it has to do with the southern kingdom that will face this war in the Valley of Decision. There's only one time when the southern kingdom will be faced with a war, and that is with Hamashiach in Harmageddon war. Therefore, we cannot allow ourselves to be led away from the truth, because once we know the series of events to take place in the end times, then we will stay on the path of truth. Many have looked for the Valley of Yahawashpat, because I want to say Yahawah or Yahawashpat on a map and decided that it is another valley and not Harmageddon. Now, this is in error because we have to realize that this description of a valley was prophetic and not a physical description of where to find it. Yahawashpat means Yahawah has judged, hence it is called the Valley of Decision. Yet it is Harmageddon and not another place. And we will look at this prophecy in Joel 3 in the next chapter. But let's look at it here and see what I'm talking about. Joel chapter 3 verse 1. For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Yahawah and Yahawah. Now that is the southern kingdom. He is returning Yahawah and Yahawah. That is the southern kingdom. So he's bringing them again, where? To the earth. And I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Yahawashpat and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, Yashrael, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. And we go down to verse 14 because we're going to go through this entire chapter in the next lesson, in the next chapter 19. Verse 14, multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahawah is near in the valley of decision. The sun and moon shall be darkened, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. Yahawah also shall roar out of Zion and utter his voice from Yerushalayim, and the heavens and the earth shall shake. But Yahawah will be the hope of his people and the strength of Habonai ol Yashwa'al. And I don't want to go too deeply into this, but there's only one other time when the sun and the moon shall be darkened and the stars shall withdraw their shining, and that is the 3 days of darkness. All right? So the day of Yahawah is near, meaning the day of Hamashiach's return for, yes. The day of Yahawah is always a time when he is coming to the earth to bring judgment. All right? So that's why it's called the Valley of Decision. So this verse 15 is allowing us to know that the sun and the moon shall be darkened and the stars shall withdraw their shining. This verse here has to do with the time when the 3 days of darkness comes and start the ball rolling for, first of all, the southern kingdom to be taken up to their place. All right. And then once they're taken out of the place, then it starts the ball rolling for the northern kingdom. All right. So these verses here, there is some time elapsing in between the verses. So don't think that when the war comes, that there's going to be another time when the sun and the moon will be darkened and the stars shall withdraw their shining. Because remember, time has stopped. The sun has stopped. Right? Once Hamashiach comes, he is going to be the glory in the land. So there's no more sun, moon, and stars anyway. Time stops at trumpet number 6. So the setting of the sun and the rising of the sun has stopped. And it's not going to come back again, because time as we know it will stop. And this is way back in trumpet number 6 when this occurs. All right. So this verse 15 is just giving us the series of events that will take place to allow us to know, because that's why the prophet says the day of Yahawah is near. All right. It is not here yet. It is near. And one of the signs that shows you that it is near is when the sun and the moon and the stars becomes darkened. Right? And then in verse 16, Yahawah also shall roar out of Zion. Where is Zion? That is the mountain of Zion. That's where his tabernacle is going to be established. And he will utter his voice from Yerushalayim. And Yerushalayim is going to be his center for worship. And Zion is going to be the mountain in which he is going to place his tabernacle. And the heavens and the earth shall shake. So this is Hamashiach. When he comes to the earth, when he returns to the earth, he's coming back as king, and he's coming back with his power, full power. And that's why he will utter his voice from Yerushalayim, because he's going to enter the world through Yerushalayim, through his city. He's going to enter in through his city, and then he's going to ride out to the valley. But Yahawah will be the hope of his people and the strength of Habonai ol Yashwa'al. And when we get to this verse, this scripture, it's going to be amazing to see how Hamashiach, with the sword in his mouth, is just going to cut down. And this is going to touch too in Zechariah chapter 14. I may touch on some of those verses in Zechariah 14 to go hand in hand with Joel chapter 3. All right. So clearly this war will take place when Hamashiach returns to the earth with his saints on white horses, and this is very evident. Oh, I read that as if I had something more to say, right? Let me just say it again. So clearly, this war will take place when Hamashiach returns to the earth with his saints on white horses. And this is very evident because it is written here about Yahawah is going to roar out of Sayawan. Sayawan is where his tabernacle is going to be, and his voice from Yerushalayim. All right? So all of this is coming out from his city and from his tabernacle. And this is the evidence. And then the heavens and earth will shake. Why is the heavens and earth shake? Every time he comes down, it causes the heavens and earth to shake. We've looked at that in previous studies. All right. So let's go on now. Chapter 17 of Revelation, chapter 18 revised. And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, "It is done." We love to hear those words, don't we? When Hamashiach said it on the stake, "It is finished, it is done." What did it mean? Our salvation plan, our redemption plan was completed with his death. It now needed for us to walk it out. All right? This last vial poured out will be in the air, and once again we hear these precious words, "It is done," or "It is finished." Where have we heard these words before? Let us look at some scriptures where Hamashiach uttered these words. So we look at Yohanan chapter 19 verse 28. After this, Yahawah, knowing that all things were now accomplished, meaning finished, fulfilled, that the scriptures might be fulfilled, said, "I thirst." Now there was set a vessel full of vinegar, and they filled a sponge with vinegar, and put it upon hyssop, and put it to his mouth. When Yahawah therefore had received the vinegar, he said, "It is finished," meaning it is done. And he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. So once the prophecies he came to fulfill were accomplished, then he gave up the ghost. Revelation chapter 21 verse 5. And he that sat upon the throne said, "Behold, I make all things new." And he said unto me, "Write, for these words are true and faithful." And he said unto me, "It is done. It is done. It is all finished. I am A and Tha, the beginning and the end. And I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. He that overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his Alahayam, and he shall be my son." So in Revelation 21, starting from verse 5 all the way to verse 7, is explaining that he is now renewing the heavens and the earth and the city, Yerushalayim. He's going to make all things new. It is finished. So that's why I love these three words. It is done, or it is finished. Because marvelous things were accomplished, or will be accomplished when these words are spoken. When Alahayam uttered these words, "It is done or finished," it means that what he had purposed in his heart to accomplish was and will be completed. Alahayam Yahawah spoke these words when he completed the redemption plan of Ha'aba. And Hamashiach also completed his purpose on the earth to bring the light in the form of his word and to release his Ruach to reveal his truth to the believers of Hamashiach. So let me read that again. And he, Hamashiach, also completed his purpose on the earth to bring the light in the form of his word to release his Ruach to reveal his truth to the believers of Hamashiach. So when he had accomplished all that the scriptures were spoken, all the prophecies that were spoken pertaining to him being alive on the earth, then it was time for him to be received by his Father, and at the same time him releasing his Ruach on the earth to complete the redemption plan. To complete, well, when I say redemption plan, I mean to help us to walk in the redemption plan. Because we still can't do it by ourselves. because Hamashiach needs to be revealed by Allah Hayam. Sorry, by Ruach HaKodesh. Allah Hayam Yahawah draws us to the Son, and He releases Ruach HaKodesh to reveal the Son to us, and the Son reveals the Father to us. That's the plan. But if there is somehow where people have denied Hamashiach, then there will be no revelation. There will be no drawing to the Father. There will be no redemption. There will be nothing. Just condemnation. All right? So we need to walk in the plans and purpose of Allah Hayam Yahawah and understand these precepts. We have to understand these precepts. They're detrimental to our beliefs, to our faith. All right? We need the light from Hamashiach. He said, he's the one who brings the light in the form of his word, in the form of the Father's word. All that belongs to him comes from the Father. And he speaks only what the Father gives him to speak. And he came and he spoke the word of his Father to us through his disciples who have written it down so that we today can receive those words. But the problem is we can't receive those words without the Comforter, who is the Spirit of truth. So you see the predicament that we're in if we reject Hamashiach? We are in big trouble. So when he said it was finished or it is done on the stake, it was a whole big plan that was set in motion to draw us back to the Father through him. All right, let's read on. In Revelation 21, verse 5, Allah Hayam also spoke these words at the end of the age when all of his judgments were poured out on the earth and its inhabitants. Even the white throne judgment is completed. And now Allah Hayam Yahawah is ready to make all things new. A new heaven, a new earth, and a new Yahawah, all coming down from heaven to restore what was corrupted by the devils and their agents. And now the voice of Allah Hayam is speaking these words because his wrath, divided into 7 vials, are completed. Therefore, these particular judgments are completed. So all the judgments are completed. All the devils have been cast into the lake of fire. The white throne judgment is finished, and now all that is left is the renewal of all things. And he said, it is done. Amazing words. 3 little words, but they're amazing. Verses 18 and 19 of Revelation chapter 18 revised. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came in remembrance before Allah Hayam to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Once again, for the 3rd time, at the completion of a batch of judgments, there are voices and lightnings and thunders, because the heavens and all its hosts are crying out in praises. So remember, at the ending of the 7th seal, we still have the voices and the lightnings and the thunders. At the ending of the trumpet judgments, will be the 7th trumpet, we have the same thing. There are voices and lightnings and thunders. And now, the 7th vial, we have the same thing. The voices and the lightnings and the thunders. So every 7th judgment, we have the voices crying out. Right? And at the same time, there is a great earthquake. In this occasion, there's a great earthquake, and even greater than the earthquake in seal number 6. Now this earthquake will be so great that it will cause the city where the whore of Babylon once occupied to be divided into 3 parts, and all the cities of the nations are also destroyed. This will be the final assault against the whore of Babylon, as we see the fierce anger which Elohim has towards this beast. I'm telling you, Elohim hates this whore. Remember that she represents all pagan religions on the earth, and anyone caught in any pagan religion will face the wrath of Elohim. That's why I'm telling y'all, get out of the churches, get out of the camps, get into relationship with Elohim yourself. You don't need a man over you or a woman over you to guide you anywhere. He will guide you himself. This is the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom is another story. They're coming out in their armies. But we today, the southern kingdom, he is going to draw us to himself by himself. And all these different little groups of people that you are sitting under, they're cults. And you know how you know a cult? Because of all the things that you have to do to stay in it. And you cannot speak out against your leader. Otherwise, they'll have your throat. They'll have at you. They'll kick you out of the group. Or they'll keep you in subordination. Tell you can't speak in the group any longer. This is how you know when you are in a cult. When you're being controlled by a man and not by Yahawah. And all these different ones that find themselves in these groups. This is exactly what Elohim is going to do with all of them. He's going to bring his judgment against them because indirectly they're worshiping the whore. The whore represents all pagan religions, and all these Hebrew Israelite camps are pagan religions. That's why you still have them still teetering on Christianity. You still have them calling on Christ and God and Lord and what have you. You have them involved in other religions. But we already discussed this in many other videos before. Get out of these groups. You don't need to be in a group. You need to get one-on-one with Yahawah, with Elohim. You need to repent, and first of all, you need to believe in HaMashiach, because you can't go before Elohim, Yahawah, without him. But you need to repent. And you need to fall on your face before the Most High. All right? And you need to believe in his Son. Otherwise, you're going nowhere but the lake of fire. Get out of these groups. They're all teaching you lies anyway. They're teaching you lies. All right. You're going to find out, and it's going to be too late when you find out. Because like I said, 3 days of darkness is coming. And once that darkness descends, your fate is sealed. You don't have a chance to repent. You're not going to want to repent. How can you repent when you got wickedness in your heart? You see what happened to the wicked ones that they were filled with sores and what have you? What did they do? They did not blaspheme Elohim. Same thing is going to be in your hearts because you have wickedness in there. And by that time, Elohim would have cut you off anyway. He doesn't want to hear you. Verse 20 and 21 of Revelation chapter 18 revised. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And we know this happened with seal number 6, earthquake. But not every mountain was destroyed, or every island destroyed. Verse 21, and there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent, And men blasphemed Elohim because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceeding great. So this is the only difference between all the other seventh judgments, is this plague of hail that is huge. All right, and this plague of hail is coming to destroy. I've seen what hail the size of golf balls or the size of um, baseballs. I've seen what they can do. But you imagine these hailstones. That is the equivalent. I have it written down here, 129 pounds. You know how heavy that is? All right. This is going to be some huge golf stones. Not golf stones, sorry. Sorry. These are going to be some huge hailstones. Huge. Size of grapefruits or even bigger. Basketballs. Because it's ice, right? And ice could be pretty heavy. Maybe even bigger than a basketball. It's going to be massive. And they're coming down like raindrops. You know how you see, you can't even differentiate. Well, because these things are going to be so big and they're going to be coming down. I can't even imagine what they would look like. 129 pounds. Now, this earthquake would do more than its predecessor in seal number 6. What remaining mountains and islands that were left from seal number 6 earthquake will now be completely destroyed by this massive earthquake. The only mountain remaining on the earth will be Mount Sayawan in Yarowashalam, where the temple of Yahawah will be established. And let me just rephrase that, because I should have said the only mountains, plural, remaining will be remaining on the earth will be in Yashraal. Not just the mountain of Sayawan. And how we know this? Because the war of Gog and Magog, they're coming in the mountains of Yashraal. So the only mountains that will remain will be in in Yashraal. And remember, the whole land of Yashraal will be protected from all the plagues. So obviously, any mountains there will not be affected. Okay? There'll be the mountains in Yashraal will not be affected. Nothing in Yashraal will be affected. The hail that will come with this final plague will weigh about 1 talent, which is the equivalent of 129 pounds or 58 kilograms. This is a mighty, hefty hailstone that will be falling on the wicked, killing many of them. We know that there will still be many left alive, as they will become the armies of the 3 unclean spirits like frogs or Satans to war against Hamashiach and his saints in the valley of decision. What I want to call to our memory is that these plagues are similar to the plagues that Elohim brought against Matzorayim in the days of our forefathers when they were in Goshen. Elohim brought judgments not only against Pharaoh and his servants, his people, and even his land, but he also brought them against their gods that they worshipped. So now let us look again, because I've done this before, at the gods that were being judged along with the wicked inhabitants of the earth. So these are the 7 plagues from the 7 vials that will be poured out upon the earth. So the first one in Revelation 18 verse 2, this is according to the revised chapter, Revelation 18. We have here the plague of the grievous sores, and that the god or goddess that is being judged is Isis, who is supposed to be the preventer of disease, amongst other things. We looked at this Isis, and Isis is also Semiramis, who's also Astarte and Ashereth and all the different goddesses that you see. This is the same Isis. The Queen of Heaven is also Isis, Mariam, Eve, and that's why I said don't use the name Eve. Her name is Yahawah. And Esther is also Ishtar, which is the Queen of Heaven, which is still the same goddess Isis. All right. And Isis has a male counterpart. Well, not really a counterpart. There's the husband. There's a name for it, but they're the one that is always paired with Isis is I have him written here. My again, Osiris. Yes, Osiris. For some reason, the name just went out of my mind. And Isis and Osiris, and then you have also the counterparts for those two will be Semiramis and Nimrod. And those two brought forth a child, and that child is called by many names: Horus and Tammuz, right? And Ra, the sun god. Also, Jesus is Tammuz. The name Jesus is Tammuz. It's also Horus and Ra. That's what I'm saying. All these people calling on Jesus, you're calling on a sun god. It's not the son of Elohim, it's the sun god. So here we have Isis, the preventer of disease, and that's how it's all connected. And actually, I'm going to do that at the end. Revelation chapter 18, verse 3. This is number 2 plague, the plague of the sea turning into dead man's blood. The gods that are affected here will be Neptune, the Roman god of the sea and fresh water. He was the son of Saturn. His brother is Jupiter, the equivalent of Zeus from Greek mythology. And Zeus here is another name that is attributed to Jesus. All right? And Saturn, the worship of Saturn happens on Saturdays. So you have the brethren that claim they're awakened and they're still using the Gregorian calendar and thinking that Saturday is the Shabbat every week. It is not. It is not. So when you worship on Saturday, you're worshiping the god of Saturn, which happens to be connected to Neptune. All right, and Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea. Revelation chapter 18, verse 4. This is the third plague. The plague of the rivers and fountains of water will become blood. Again, the Neptune and Poseidon, which are the gods, and they're all connected to the worship of Saturn. All right? The worship of Saturn. So start worshiping on Saturday and Sunday. Worshiping on Sunday is also the worship of the sun god Ra, Horus, Tammuz, and what have you. When you're following Elohim's calendar and it happens to fall on those days, you're not calling a holy day an unholy day or vice versa. You're worshiping according to the calendar of Elohim. But when you worship according to the Gregorian calendar and you worship on these days, you are worshiping their gods, not Elohim. Number 4 plague, Revelation chapter 18, verse 8 and 9, the plague of the scorching sun. And that's Ra, the sun god, Horus, the sun god. All right? And we know who those gods are in reference to is Jesus. This Jesus character. Revelation chapter 18, verse 10. This is plague number 5, the plague of darkness. Who's affected? Ra, the sun god, and Horus, the sun god. Plague number 6, Revelation chapter 18, verse 12. The plague of the river Euphrates drying up. Neptune and Poseidon. And plague number 7, Revelation chapter 18. The plague released in the air causing an earthquake and hail. So who are the gods that are being judged? will be Osiris, the god of crops and fertility, also lord of death and rebirth, because there were people that were going to be killed. Ra, the sun god, Horus, the sun god, and Isis, the queen of heaven. So, in a nutshell, all these gods that you see here are being worshipped by our brethren today and by Christians today. They call them by different names. These are the ancient names that were given to these gods. But the modern names will be like Mary, the Virgin Mary, yes, that one. You have Jesus or Jesus Christ. Even if you call him Jesus of Nazareth, it doesn't matter. It's the same God, same fallen deity. Lord, who is Baal or Baal, that's being worshipped. You call him Lord, you call him God, you are calling on Baal or Baal. All right? You need to know who you're worshiping, because you are falling under pagan worship and you don't even know it. You don't even know it. And you tell this to the brethren, you know what they want to do? They want to stone you. Because you know why? When they call on these names and these titles, they can do whatever they want to do. They can go and marry many different wives. They can mix marry. They can do all kinds of things because they're not being convicted of their sins. Heaven forbid, if they call on the true name and title of the Most High and His Son, they're going to be convicted. Because he said, I never wanted man to have more than one wife. If that was the case, he would have had several wives for Adam. But Adam only had one wife. Yes, our forefather, Yahawah, had 4 wives. But that was a situation that he found himself in. Not on his own accord, but because he was being deceived by Laban. However, the father still allowed it because the law really was not established until the time of Masha. All right? We cannot look at what our forefathers have done in error and think, okay, we can still do it today because the Most High permitted it. He permitted it with Yahawah. And even when Dawud did it, how about when Solomon did it? He had 1,000 wives and concubines. Look at how he ended up. And look what happened to the kingdom. Look what happened to Dawud when he had all those different children from all these different women. Were there not confusion in his house? How could a man keep a household running with all these different women, with all these different children? It is not possible. Not with sin rampant in their hearts. Sin nature, that is. How are you going to keep it straight? Because you're going to love, you're going to have favorites. And the ones that are not the favorite is going to be envious of the ones that are the favorites. And then that's how you have confusion. And the devil loves confusion. One man and one woman. And you love this person so much that, and you multiply, and you love your children because they're the product of your love. But all these gods that you see here, from 1 all the way through to number 7, is pointing towards Christianity. It is pointing to Judaism. We know that there are certain Christian churches that worship only on Saturdays. I think the Seventh Day Adventist worships only on Saturdays, and that's a Christian organization. But all of these gods are under the umbrella called the whore Babylon. All right? They all point to the whore of Babylon. Because no matter what denomination in the Christian church that you find yourself in, you're still worshiping the same gods. Because you're worshiping on Sunday or you're worshiping on a Saturday. You're worshiping the same Jesus or the same Christ or the same Lord or the same God. You're worshiping the same gods. All right? But the whole idea, it is pointing to pagan religion. So even if it is Buddhism or some other religion, we know that their gods are connected to these gods. They're all connected. And we've seen it. I did a study called the Roman Catholic Church and Christianity, but I also touched on other religions. And the reason why I focus mostly on Christianity is because that's where a lot of us came from, and still even more of us are trapped in Christianity. That's why I focus on Christianity and showed you how it came from, how Christianity was around even before your so-called Christ that you claim was on the earth. You see, they try to connect Christ with Christianity, but it's all pagan. Christianity was around long before even Hamashiach came on the earth, so it could not be connected to him. All right. Let me finish up this last verse. All these gods are being worshipped on the earth from the dawn of time will face the wrath of Allah Hayam in his fury. These are the fallen angels who presented themselves as gods so that the inhabitants on the earth will worship them and reject Allah Hayam. They will finally be judged and condemned, soon to be cast into their final home, which will be the lake of fire. However, their destruction will not be completed until Hamashiach returns to the earth with his saints for his millennial reign. All right? And afterwards. So their destruction will not be completed until Hamashiach returns to the earth with his saints, and that will be that first war, the war of Armageddon, and then after his millennial reign, the final war, which will be the Gog and Magog war. And then at that point of time, all the Satans will be cast into the lake of fire along with all their devils and demons and unclean spirits and the fallen angels, what have you, all cast into the lake of fire. And then their agents are going to be destroyed, and they too will be cast into the lake of fire. All right? So that's the ending of chapter 18. We're closing in to the end. Chapter 19 is coming up. And that is going to be a very interesting study because we're going to look at the war of Armageddon. So it may be a 3 or 4 part series. I'm hoping just 3. I finished part 1 already, but I'm still working on part 2. And I'm seeing now, because I have to do the war, and if I include the book of Zechariah chapter 14, it may be a little bit longer. But we'll see. I don't know these things until I get started and I realize, okay, this is a bit long, so let me, divide it up. So this is the ending of Revelation chapter 18 revised, and I'm going to end with the blessing for Yahawah. And I will also repeat not only the blessing for Yahawah, but the command for Yahawah. I'm going to repeat that again. All right. Let me see if I can find it first. Yeah, I know these things by heart, but to be honest with you, because my after doing the study, I'm in a different zone. I'm in a different zone. All right, so let's start with the blessing of Yashwa'al, the Barayam, chapter 6, verse 24 to 26. Yabarakak Yahawah, wa Yashamarak. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. Ya'ar Yahawah panayo alayak wa yahanak. May Yahweh cause his face to shine upon you and have favor upon you. Ya Yasha'a Yahweh panayo alayak wa yasham lak shalawam. May Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you peace. And now I'm going to read from Deuteronomy, the Barayam, chapter 6, verse 4 and 5. Shama'o Yashwa'al Yahweh Alahayana Yahweh Achad wa Ahabath Ath Yahweh Alahayak Bakal Lababak wa Bakal Napashak wa Bakal Ma'adak. And this is, Hear, O Yashwa'al Yahweh Alahayana Yahweh Achad. You shall love Yahweh Alahayam with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And I say, Amen to that. And Shalom, Shalom. All praises to the Most High. Abba Yah.